This is The Edge of Adventure. My name is Adam Asher. Welcome back, everybody. Great to have you. Today, we have the privilege of getting to know an organization called Free the Slaves. And we have their executive director joining me for the program today, Bukeni Waruzi. So, Bukeni, first of all, I just want to welcome you to the show. Thanks for taking the time.
No, thank you for the opportunity to talk to you and your audience.
Bukeni, a question comes to mind.
Mhm.
Are there slaves today?
Thank you again for the question, Adam. That's quite a very important question. Of course, the topic we're going to discuss today relate to that question. The question is very important, because somehow we thought that slavery has ended with the Emancipation Proclamation and really the end of colonialism in Africa, or really the end of slave trade back in the 18th century. But really, it has yet. It has just changed and took the different shapes and forms. For example, in the past, we had people selling others and buying other human beings. Today, that has changed. It has a different form, and the form it has taken ranged from sexual exploitation, sexual slavery, to human trafficking, forced labor, child labor, um, forced prostitution, domestic servitude. All of those are forms of modern slavery. That's where that terminology of modern slavery comes from. But really, the mindset, the philosophy is the same. Someone in a position of power coerce the other human being to really do what he wants. That is still the same mentality. That's why.
Bukeni Waruzi is my guest today here on the Edge of Adventure. He's executive director at Free the Slaves. And this is an organization that I've known about for at least the last couple of years, and really have looked forward to this opportunity to get to dig in a little deeper to their work. I know this is an important topic, and it's inspiring, really, when you look at the work that they do and the different places that they work. So let's move to that topic next, Bukeni. Where do you work? Where are the main areas of concentration where Free the Slaves is able to get involved and make a difference?
Yes, there are so many places where free the slaves is involved and make a difference. Of course, we can talk about what the difference is free the slave makes. But really, in terms of a geographical location, free the slaves works in all over the world. We work in Asia, especially India, Nepal, and Vietnam and the Philippines. We work in the Middle East, in Lebanon, Qatar, and Jordan. We also work in Africa, both in West Africa, in Central Africa, and in East Africa. And we also work in the Caribbean, especially in Haiti, and also Barbados and Trinidad and Tobago. And lastly, not least, we also work in Latin America, namely in the Dominican Republic, in Mexico, but also in Guatemala and Salvador. So as you can see the map, we work on in those different places. But here is the key, Adam. Our work is centrally located in the local communities. Wherever we work in these countries, we work in local communities, and one goal is to bring the change at local level. What that change is to change the conditions that allow modern slavery to exist, and those conditions really range from poverty, climate change, racial injustices. Those are kind of the big drivers among the big drivers of to slavery.
Bukeni Waruzi is my guest today here on the Edge of Adventure, joining us from Free the Slaves. He's the executive director there. And Bukeni, then let's talk about that approach that Free the Slaves has to invest in the communities and to really approach this at the community level. Explain why that's important. I kind of come at it from this perspective. if a community is falling victim to this practice, to slavery, it's not something that's just affecting one person or one family. I mean, I have to imagine that it's affecting a group of people.
Yes, slavery at community level affects quite a huge number of people. Many communities are devastated by the issue. Why at local level? Because at local level, you find some of the practices and traditions that are conducive of modern slavery. For example, if you look at the issue of female genital mutilation, it really is one of the practices that we're trying to fight at local level, because these are kind of a part of the traditions in some communities. Or you may find in other communities issues around child soldiers. Those children being forcibly recruited and being enlisted in the group, in the armies. Those are issues that we find at local communities. And why again? But because also the solutions are there. The solutions are to come at local communities, and that's where they should be also implemented. So the focus at local communities for free the slaves is the backbone of our programming, the way we envision programs, and the way, and also our methodology as well. So where we build the capacity of these communities to be resilient, we build the capacity of this community to resist modern slavery through targeted programs and actions at local level. That's what really makes a big difference and really lead to change in most of the times.
Bukeni, what are a couple of those programs at the local level that help so much to thwart the practice of slavery and to keep people from falling victim to this? What are some of the programs that you guys have found to be effective?
Yes, there are so many that are effective, but what we try to do so many programs. Amongst them include capacity building of local communities, how to really build the capacity so that they can identify, so that they can prevent, but also so that they can also make sure they can hold perpetrators are accountable. So change also, we do also advocacy at local level to mobilize local community to fight modern slavery in any shape or forms that might be. We also make sure we do local research to identify key approaches and methodologies that are best of addressing modern slavery at local level. And really, we also work, to do partnerships and rescues. There are so many girls and women trapped in modern slavery, whether from sexual or slavery to the domestic servitude. So, or maybe kids being trapped in fishing industry in many countries, or folks being trapped in bonded labor. So our work is to rescue them, to get them out of that state where they are trapped. But also we work with local groups we partner to really create interventions that are strategic and really impactful, that can curb modern slavery. And last not least, we build movement at local and global level to build a movement where we work with survivors. We work with local communities to really educate everybody at local community about about what more than slavery is and what they can do to prevent and also protect the victims, but also to make sure we really, it is some of those practices of preventing and protecting are really emboldened into local practices and culture.
Bukeni Waruzi is my guest today here on the show for the Edge of Adventure podcast. He's executive director at Free the Slaves, and we're talking about their work worldwide. We're talking about the topic of slavery, the fact that it still exists, and perhaps its form or the way that it exists or the shape that it takes is different perhaps than maybe the image we grew up with or that we know from the history books, but it still exists. Slavery still exists, and thanks to organizations like Free the Slaves, many people are being freed and also getting on with their lives and life after slavery. So let me ask you about that. When someone has been victimized and they found themselves in this type of servitude, trapped in this type of slavery, and then thanks to Free the Slaves, you guys come in and you help to rescue them, which is amazing. What's their life like though after that?
Yeah, I mean, the impact of slavery is really huge. Of course, we cannot put estimate, because there's nothing you can compare with. So it has a toll on the mental health. You have trauma issues that are very critical when someone has been rescued from slavery, and really it impact the whole future at any individual level, but also at family level, but also at the whole community. For example, imagine a woman who was taken from Kenya and in domestic servitude in, let's say, Lebanon, because there are so many in that situation where they are really abused sexually. They have nowhere to go, nothing to tell, and all of those are things that they did not even think could happen. When they come back, they face many issues from trauma, psychological or effect from the experience. They also face challenges in terms of how to rebuild their life again. Those are very big challenges. Now, those we can talk about, the reintegration of those survivors or victims. That is really a very big issue, because we have also to make sure really the community where they will be welcomed, is ready. But by ready meaning, they can be again considered as children from the community, where the community can support them as they try to rebuild their lives. But really, the impact is a long-lasting impact. But really, they are very brave. They are very brave human beings. The way they cope with it, going into communities, despite many challenges, including how to rebuild, in communities that are ravaged by poverty, where where livelihood becomes a challenge. So those are kind of things that they find, and Free the Slaves always comes to really help by providing the means and resources to help the victims rebuild their lives and find their ways again. Some of them are taken into school to get some more education again. Some of them are doing a kind of going into non-official school, where they can learn some of the job and also acquire new skills. So Free the Slaves really work at community level to make sure that we can find ways where these survivors or victims of modern slavery can rebuild their life and reintegrate the community again. But it's really very challenging in most of the time.
Bukeni, this is something that Free the Slaves, the organization, has been doing for quite some time. Tell me a little bit about the history of the organization, where it got its start, and the impact that it's had through the years.
Yes, Free the Slaves is one of the founding organization of the modern slavery movement around the world. While the organization was founded in the year 2000, worked in many places around the world, from Asia to Africa to Latin America to the Caribbean. And the bulk of the work has been how to build the resilience and the resistance in communities affected by modern slavery. We have explained, I have explained the different form, shape and form of modern slavery. So these are issues that we've been working throughout the world in many places. For example, one of the countries where we have worked for many years is India. Where we have really rescued people trapped in bonded labor in bricks killing in northern India in the Uttar Pradesh region, and this has been really very successful. Where we have been able, around the world to free more than 14,000 people since our creation. So it's been quite a huge success. But guess what? We are still doing this. We are still trying to rescue because many people fall into slavery almost every day. Of course, we don't have the current estimate, but it is estimated that none. But today, as of today, the official estimate is that there are more than 40 million people trapped in modern slavery. So there is still many people out there waiting for freed slave services to come and help take them out of slavery. But also we need to prevent this from happening. How do we prevent it? But also try to educate the community. So we've been there for many years. We've been really build the capacity of many communities to make sure they can learn, they can acquire skills and knowledge that will allow them to be resilient and resistant to modern slavery, throughout the world.
Bukeni Waruzi is my guest today, Executive Director at Free the Slaves. And I always do some research, right, in preparation for these conversations. It's one of the reasons why I get so interested in learning more is I, do a little research, get to know you guys. One of the things that comes up or that I've seen you guys talk about is a liberation toolkit.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about that.
Well, so back in 2015, we started developing tools that with which we can equip communities so that they can resist and be resilient to modern slavery. So the community liberation toolkit is one of the tools that we deploy through trainings and capacity building for local communities, but we also use them in advocacy as well. For example, we have had 4 modules that include mobilization and education, reintegration of victims and survivors, and rule of law, because in many communities that is one of the gaps, but also livelihood for victims and survivors. So we have really developed, we have so far developed 3 modules and also translated those in different languages, whether from French to English through Spanish and Arabic. And then right now we are developing the 4th modules, which focuses on livelihood for victims and survivors. So these are tools really that we have used throughout, and the impact is really great. For example, I was in Ghana where I saw my team there in Ghana that working to prevent and protect children trapped in the fishing industry in Lake Volta region. They are as young as 5, taken and then really become fishermen, and then you can imagine they have to do that despite their will. They are obliged to do so by the families, by the community, but also the living conditions also oblige them to go that. So I've seen how we have trained local communities there to make sure they can be empowered to prevent their kids from going into fishing, but taking them into education, formal schools. We have also seen how these toolkits were really deployed to to train women to build, small saving initiatives where they can do small scale business initiatives to overcome the issue of poverty. So we have used really these tools to empower communities that we do support on the ground. We have worked with partners as well that are working, that are on the front lines to train them to acquire new skills, new learnings, and also new knowledge as they try to improve, to innovate every day, and adapt to new situations as they come.
My guest today is Bukeni Waruzi, the executive director at Free the Slaves. Bukeni, let's talk now a little bit about your story. What brought you to leadership in an organization like this?
Yeah, my story, how I started to get into the leadership of Free the Slaves is that the issue first is not a strange issue. It's a very familiar issue to me. I was born and raised in the Democratic Republic of Congo in Africa, where I happened to find myself in the middle of the war, where many children were being abducted and taken by militia group and other parties in conflict to become soldiers. And child soldiers, are one of the targeted, one of the form of more modern slavery. Trying to work to rescue some of the kids, taking them back home and reintegrate them in communities and taking them to school. That kind of work that I did over, when I started my career in human rights activism. And I then took the case of child soldier in the Congo to the International Criminal Court to make sure, this kind of impunity is prosecuted. And we were all happy to see that one warlord, Thomas Lubanga, was sentenced to 14 years in prison for using child soldier in the Democratic Republic of Congo. So that was a big success. And we know that one of the worst form of child labor, which is also slavery, is child soldier. To recruit someone under the age of 15 or 18 and make them become combatant is a crime. So coming into that kind of world where I then join other big organizations in Africa, in Europe, but also in America, really prepared me to take a leadership role at Free the Slaves, both from a practical experience, but also from a leadership experience. That's how I really feel good to be leading Free the Slaves at this very critical moment. And really, we just released our new strategic plan, which is a 10-year plan that really defines, where Free the Slaves, what Free the Slaves intend to do in the next 10 years to make sure we eradicate modern slavery in local communities.
How do we, as listeners, viewers from around the world, how can we participate in helping in this way, helping to stop this? How can we combat modern slavery? If someone living their normal life and whatever their home is, whatever their home city is, maybe they think, I don't think slavery is necessarily something that I come into contact with, but how can we be a part of the solution?
Yeah, I think being part of the solution is to make sure we are not being part of the problem. And there are many ways, we really happen to be in position of not being part of the solution just by ignorance. So I think the major one, the first thing I will recommend is to get educated on the issue. how modern slavery occurs. How do we make sure we don't contribute to modern slavery? For example, when we buy some goods from outside, we don't know how those goods are made, and many of them might be made by, might be as a result of child labor. We have many kids who working in the agriculture industry or other industries outside, United States. So the question is, how aware are we when we buy those kind of goods? Second, modern slavery occurs everywhere. It doesn't mean because we are in the United States that means there is no modern slavery. It exists. We have so many. If you go, for example, in the West Coast, you'll find some of the girls being used in different parlors where they are being used as really sexual slaves by their masters. So these are kind of issues that happen. We have to be aware, we have to be educated, and make sure we do not participate or encourage, even though we don't know. So that doesn't happen anymore. But also, I want to people who are really listening to think how to support free the slaves. Or of course, all this information you can find them on our website, www.freetheslaves.net, where you can find all this information in terms of what action you can do. You can take, what to learn about modern slavery, what free the slaves intend to do, and if you happen to be in one of these countries where free the slaves work, you can find our team. You can learn about our work, and really you can really support free the slaves as we fight to eradicate modern slavery everywhere. So these are kind of the three actions that I think, if we collectively take them, we can help both protect and also prevent from more people from entering more modern slavery around the world.
My guest today here on the Edge of Adventure is Bukeni Waruzi, Executive Director at Free the Slaves. And we're talking today about modern day slavery. And of course, as we've already established, modern day slavery might not look like it looked or in the history books or like it looked in the past. But the issue still exists, and I'm very thankful for organizations like Free the Slaves that are working against that and working to free those and give them freedom, those who have been trapped in this type of modern day slavery. How is it that a child gets recruited and brought in to be a child soldier? I think for so many of us that is such a foreign concept. How does that happen, Bukeni?
Yeah, sure. Of course, child soldiers might seem to be a faraway concept from the United States, but there are many ways you can see these big powers also participate in the process. So these, militias or armies, they go invade, certain communities and find young people, 5, 7, 9, 10, 12, 13, whatever. And then they take them by force, enlist them, and then take them away from their homes, from their communities, from their parents, and put them in a training camp. So when the child is there, has nowhere to go, nowhere to, nobody to talk to, and they start kind of brainwashing them to find to seed in them new mentality, new education, as they have to be fighting. So that's how that transformation, while it may take 1 year, but the impact of that transformation may take the whole, the entire future of the child. Now, that process, you see these commanders, etc., they have weapons, they have uniform, but in countries like Congo, they don't manufacture weapons. You have, these kids, when they go into the camp, they are given AK-47, for example, Congo does not manufacture AK-47s. These are coming from Russia, from the United States, from from Canada, from all these Western countries, France, whatever. Now, why will these countries do that? They invest in this kind of war because there are huge returns. And one of the huge returns is they have access to cheaper mines. Many of the tools that we do use, their raw materials are coming from countries like Congo. For example, the laptops of the coltan or the cell phones that we use, some of the raw materials that are used to manufacture these tools that we use are coming from a mineral called coltan. And the coltan, you find it in Congo in a huge proportions. So when they fight there, these Western companies invest in these militia groups in this war, also that they can get easy access to the minerals. So you have that kind of cycle where this issue of child soldier might be seen as a faraway issue, but in one ways, in on the other side, these Western countries, through their corporations and also these multinational companies, they participate in the process of making child soldiers, and that is wrong. Yeah.
One of the things that I saw on your website, an area that you guys work in pretty heavily, is Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about the situation in Brazil. Modern day slavery in Brazil is happening how?
Yeah, so in Brazil, we have the issue working with with in indigenous communities that are trapped, for example, in the Amazons, where indigenous land is being taken away. So you have so many communities that are used to their indigenous land, making a living on those lands, but now they have to be taken away. They have to be chased because the corporations want to invest into woods and other natural resources in the Amazon, and you have so many of these in the indigenous community with no land, nowhere to go, and they're being trapped into really begging and try to find a place. That's how you find them trapped into they become trapped into modern slavery because they want to make a living and their space is being taken. So that is one of the issues that we want to really working on. And also, of course, the effect of climate change is also huge because because of climate change, some of the waters in the forest in the Amazon is being dry. So that also makes these communities move places to places, and they have nowhere to go. As they move that way, they become vulnerable to human trafficking because the traffickers are there everywhere, and in Brazil, because of the very weak legal framework, it is very hard to really put a dent because corruption is really a huge issue. So how to curb the issue of modern slavery in Brazil becomes one of the issues that Free the Slaves is trying to work on. But I should note that we worked in Brazil for many years in the past, but really very recently we're trying to see how we can change the focus.
Bukeni, I'm asking these types of questions specifically in these areas and the ways that modern slavery is manifest in these different locations. And again, I know that you can't generalize. I mean, it's not the same for every country. It's not the same, or it's not the same for everybody in that single country. I understand it's very varied, and it's one of the reasons why what you guys do is so important. And I would say also very complex because you're dealing with a lot of different issues and different factors. But I think these stories are important because they really help those of us on the outside to personalize and really get an understanding of what's happening and how dreadful it is. And so I'm going to then ask you, as we get toward the end here, we're getting close to wrapping up this episode, but you mentioned earlier this the concept of the children being recruited for the fishing industry, I believe.
Mhm, mhm.
And yeah, how does help us understand that cycle? What's happening there?
Yeah. So, sure, that's a very good question, Adam. In the coastal region of Lake Volta in Ghana, we have hundreds, if not thousands of small children aged, 10, or I mean, 8, 10, 12, 13, whom, the only thing they know is go to fish, and they are being sent by the communities, but also not having anything else to do, they end up going into fishing, where they face risks of drowning, or risk of really abandoning anything that has to do with their future, especially for education. So we find so many of these kids, and and really a child, once they start fishing, it becomes like the only thing they know to do in life, and they have no way of escaping, because the whole community encourages them to go fishing. And they can do for the first year, second, third, etc., and their whole life is just like that. The government, while has put in place some policies to prevent and protect the children. However, the implementation of these policies remains problematic. Now, what Free the Slaves is trying to do, together with our local partners, especially the local partners such as PACODEP, or ING, or Mihozo, we're trying to make sure we can protect these kids from entering, protect them from the effect of fishing, meaning, try to, after we free them, we house them in a shelter for some times, as we try to help them see, in terms of their mental health, make sure, because they are very traumatized. Some of them are like, well, I don't want to go back fishing, but where do I go next? Because I can't go back to my community anymore, because I have betrayed them. They sent me fishing. Now I'm not going to fish anymore. That becomes a problem. So we try to make sure we can provide some intervention to protect them from as they get out, to try to rebuild their life. And then we also do some prevention by educating communities about the downside of sending the kids into fishing. So we work both at local community to prevent and protect these kids from fishing. Here we're talking about not really 10, 12, 100. There are thousands of them. That's the only thing they know. So in that, we're working with the US government, JTIP, to implement a program that we call the Child Compact program, that aims at preventing and really rescuing these kids from getting into the fishing industry, and providing them with means and resources to help them rebuild their lives, especially for getting into education, both official and non-official education in Ghana. In Ghana is in West Africa. That's where the Lake Volta region is, and that's where we work since 2016 or 17, in partnership with some local partners, but also in partnership with the US government through the Child Compact program.
Bukeni Waruzi is executive director at Free the Slaves, and he is our guest today here on the Edge of Adventure. And as we get ready to wrap up the show here, I am going to ask one of my more philosophical questions. Folks that watch the show know that I like to end with some of the more philosophical type questions. Why is this so important, Bukeni? Why are you devoting so much of your life to this fight?
Oh, wow, that's a very good question, Adam. We're working on ensuring modern slavery isn't taking place anymore is one of the issue that I care very much. Of course, there are so many. If you look at on the aspect of growing up in Africa, seeing how so many kids are trapped in the mining sites where they are confronted, where they are forced to extract gold and other mineral from the mining site by force, and looking at what the future of those kids is, it's really heartbreaking. And that is really the call I have, how to contribute, how to bring my modest contribution to the fight against modern slavery. I've got a chance. I was educated, but I've seen so many of these kids once they go into fishing or working in the mining site or being sexually exploited as, let's say, sexual slaves. The whole life is really broken, and to rebuild, it's not easy. So it's really a call for me to continue working and to make sure some of these kids, and especially girls, are freed, are taken out of slavery, and to really see communities starting really standing against modern slavery. Building the resilience of this community is really the motives that really makes me awake day and night, to make sure really it doesn't happen again. It end completely. But I know it won't be easy. That's why I can think like that as me. But I'm hoping that many other people, especially those listening to this show, can also be inspired, can also take a stand and really make sure they act against modern slavery. Any contribution is very welcome. Of course, myself, I never underestimate mine, and I will also advise also you don't underestimate yours. Your contribution will always be valuable. We need everybody's contribution so that we can eradicate modern slavery forever and for all.
Well, thank you so much. Bukeni Waruzi has been my guest today here on the Edge of Adventure, Executive Director at Free the Slaves. And if you haven't already, please be sure to look them up at freetheslaves.net. And if you're watching the video version, I'll pull that up on the screen there, freetheslaves.net, for more information about their work. It's a very thorough website. It is a very thorough organization, and if you feel led to get involved somehow to support them financially or otherwise, I encourage you to do so. Reach out to them. Let them know that you saw the program and that you got to know Bukeni a little bit today, and it was inspiring, and it's part of why you want to get involved. And it's such an important thing, Bukeni, and I know that it's important to you. That goes back for you for so many years. It's not just your time with Free the Slaves, but even before that, this was something you were fighting so very hard for. And what a wonderful thing. Bukeni, you're an inspiration. Thanks for your time today. What else do we need to know before we close the program?
No, I want to thank everybody. There are very many things that are interesting about Free the Slaves. Please go onto our website, www.freetheslaves.net, to learn more. We have a new strategic plan where you can learn, and really will encourage everybody to, whoever want to contribute. Never underestimate your contribution. Even $1 is also good. And also I try to learn some of the initiatives that we are all organizing, and you can reach out to us. We have contact. You can reach out via email, info at freetheslaves.net. If you have any questions, you want to follow up with me personally, or you need more information. And if you are a student, you are looking where you can do some internship, please come to Free the Slaves. I will be happy to help wherever we can, and both in wherever our offices are, we'll be happy to really welcome, and then you can learn even more. That can help maybe in your professional life as well. So I want to say, Adam, thank you so very much for this opportunity. Very much appreciated.
Bukeni Waruzi, Executive Director at Free the Slaves. And now, Bukeni, I'm going to consider you a friend. I appreciate you, brother. I see your passion and how hard you're working for these kids, these women, these communities, all these many people throughout the world, trapped in difficult situations and exploited because of that, and helping to free them and helping to prevent them from falling into slavery in the first place, and then helping also afterward, once they're rescued, helping them to rebuild their lives. These are amazing things. I know they're not easy to do. It takes a lot of people. You and your entire team do a great job. So again, thank you for your time. Thank you for what you do. And we will be back in touch very soon, I'm sure.
Thank you so much, brother. Pleasure is all mine. And I hope to be in touch, of course.
And thank you all for joining us for another edition of the Edge of Adventure podcast. We'll see you again next time. Thank you so much.